I'm going to talk a little about Russia and Ukraine and aggressive behavior. Yeah, get ready. Yeah, they want you to believe that paying ridiculous prices for gas is your patriotic duty to shut down Russia by banning oil imports. But you know what? It's not going to do anything to Putin. He planned on invading Ukraine a long time ago. And 2014, he was going to do it, but he couldn't because he's got his pipeline going through Ukraine. Now they've got Nord Stream 2. You can see it on the map. And Trump shut it down with sanctions. Biden lifted those sanctions and gave Putin the green light. They knew this was going to happen. It was completely preventable. But, of course, they want to get rid of the middle class and, tear everything down permanently instead of building it back better. Oh, gosh, it's, I don't want to dwell on it too long, but don't believe the media, guys. Gas prices are going through the roof. It's killing me. And, hopefully it won't get too much worse. Let's talk about something that's relevant to targeted individuals. I want to talk about aggressive behavior. I've talked about before that you have to have a strict criteria. Okay, you can't just assume everything is harassment. You can't assume that everything that happens to you is gang stalking. I see a lot of that out there. I've talked about it before. People are desperate for affirmation. They are desperate to confirm what's happening to them and everything like that. And I can understand that. And there are covert techniques and passive, types of activity that leave the targeted individual wondering. But then, of course, there's that aggressive, obvious, undeniable behavior that you deal with. I've talked about before that new targeted individuals get that. But everybody who experiences gang stalking still gets that. And I just, I just had some stuff happen. I'm just going to share a little experience that I've had. I don't get aggressive attacks very often, but they do happen, and when it rains, it pours. I got attacked 4 times in one day, and it was right after I asked you guys for prayer for the cat and me. And by the way, she recovered fully. Literally. When I got home from work, she was, drinking water again and eating, and, her eyes were all bright and shiny. She looked like she was going to die before that. So that to me can't be a coincidence. And it was a really good day. I was feeling great. I can't figure out, what everybody's problem was. But anyway, it was in traffic every time. People were attacking me. They were literally getting aggressive. I had 2 people throw some stuff out their window at the vehicle and honk, and it was really aggressive before that, flipping me off and everything. Happened 4 times in one day. Okay, I had one guy pull up and, motion for me to put down the window on the vehicle. And, luckily I was taking off in a turning lane, and I was, I thought, well, maybe there's something wrong with the vehicle. So I inspected the vehicle. Nothing's wrong with it. I couldn't figure it out. And people were literally aggressively angry to the point where they were cursing at me and flipping me off, and getting aggressive in traffic. I mean, it wasn't, some person that I thought was looking at me or, there was no question, man. And I, for the life of me, have no idea. And I've talked about before that people can be influenced spiritually. I didn't do anything any differently than I do every day. Period. It makes no sense. And, there was a wide variety of people. People I've never seen before, of all ages. The lady that freaked out at the stoplight, she was probably in her 30s. The guy was probably in his 20s. There was 2 people in a vehicle. They were probably around, their late teenage years. So I don't see any connection really, but of course I've talked about that a lot in my videos before. You deal with those anomalies. And, the people, they will get in your face. I've talked about the fact that when that happens, you want to definitely make a mental note of it. Because if nothing else, it's proof, that you are being harassed. Because like I said, a lot of this stuff is very covert and passive. And it's also evidence, depending on what's going on, depending on the catalyst or lack thereof of what you're dealing with, of, spiritual manipulation. Okay? Because, I was wearing a mask. It couldn't have been a facial expression. It couldn't have been anything I was doing. It was rush hour traffic, and I've had this happen. I think it was probably about 2 months ago, where I had it happen with I think it was like 3 women, and it was at stoplights, and one of them was an older woman who was getting a ride by, I think it was probably her daughter. And her daughter couldn't figure out what her problem was either, but she started turning around and looking at me, looking at the vehicle, shaking her head, and, did that several times. And finally she got out of the vehicle. She got out of the vehicle, approached the bumper, and took a picture of my vehicle and, flipped me off and everything, and got back in the vehicle. And her daughter was looking at me like, she couldn't figure it out. All the people at the intersection, because it was at a stoplight, they were looking at me and laughing. And, they couldn't figure it out. And I had that happen with an old lady. She did the same thing. And she was, jutting her vehicle, hitting the gas and hitting the brakes. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with everybody? But, you're going to deal with that. You're going to deal with weird, unexplainable behavior. I've talked about unorthodox behavior before, involved in gang stalking. It's a lot like unexpected street theater. It's just aggressive and hostile, I was helping a guy quit drinking one time, and like all alcoholics, he couldn't figure out if he really had a problem. Usually people get to the point where they're convinced, maybe after some really hard times, but then, of course, after a while, they wonder if they just, needed to cut back a little. Maybe they were just going too hard with it. Maybe they can still have a couple, drinks at the barbecue or whatever. That's a big dilemma for alcoholics. And so I said, okay, all right, we'll see. I'll be your bartender, because I'm not going to waste my time. Because if you go to treatment, a lot of people do that. They'll go to treatment and, they'll go through the Alcoholics Anonymous program or whatever, and they'll start going to meetings, and then they'll wonder, maybe I can still drink. And it starts off that way, and then they end up back in treatment. And so this guy, we got, some whiskey. That's what he wanted. And I locked it up in a little case, and I was going over to his house because we had a deal. I had a breathalyzer and everything that, we're going to wait till a certain time. If you can't do that, then you obviously got a problem. And then if you can't stop at a certain amount, you obviously got a problem. Little things like that. And, I stopped into this store, and I was going to get some Powerade for myself. And of course I had to get some soda so I could make him some mixed drinks, right? Yeah, the bartender. And this old lady was working at the counter, and she was always kind of talking to herself and acting kind of weird, but I didn't know her, okay? And I know she didn't know my friend. There's over 100,000 people that live here. And I put the stuff on the counter, and she just looks at me, and she had this weird look, like they always do. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. And she got close to me, and she goes, "Whiskey is risky." And I'm like, oh, gosh. I didn't say nothing. I didn't bite, But I didn't have any whiskey. It was a convenience store. I was just buying soda. So how the hell did she know that I had whiskey locked up in a toolbox at the guy's house, and I was going to meet him in 10 minutes so I could be his bartender? How does that work? Explain that one. But, you're going to deal with that, and you got to be ready for it. And I think the thing to take away is that, You just can't worry about what people are thinking. A lot of times, the attacks that targeted individuals get are frightening. A lot of times it makes you feel that you're being rejected or whatever. And it's just, you just can't care what people think. It's connected to your ego a lot of times, I grew up in a household where, my parents had a big business. And if somebody didn't wave at my father when he was driving down the 4-lane highway in the city that I was from, and he knew who they were, he would start wondering. If he didn't get a positive reaction from people who knew him wherever he went, whether he was driving down the highway or going into a store or something, he would become insecure. He would get worried. It caused a lot of stress in my house while I was growing up. It's not gang stalking, but it's the same principle. And I've talked about this before, too, that a lot of the attention that targeted individuals can get is the opposite, right? It's not negative, it's positive, because they want you to pay attention to how people are treating you. That's one of the ways that they can, get to your ego or, manipulate you emotionally. And then it'll switch. You could be getting that positive feedback. Everybody's nice to you. You can get used to it. You can be getting positive strokes from, people in your circle or wherever, just in your community. And then all of a sudden, along with some spiritual stimuli, usually, they'll do the switch. And then you're just, bewildered as to what's going on. And it throws you off. And, it's another way to gaslight you, in my opinion, because a lot of the stuff that I deal with is spiritual. I don't know about you, but it is. And it might not even have anything to do with the things that people around me are doing. Sometimes it's just stuff that's coming at me, right? In my psyche, maybe in my dreams, whatever. And a lot of that stuff affects, the way you feel. It affects your emotions and everything. And so you can see how this stuff works. They want you to internalize this stuff. They want to get in to your psyche. They want to get in close to your heart. They want to manipulate your emotions. They want to, get you to be psychosomatic, especially if you're a targeted individual who is, a believer. They want to turn it into a spiritual issue. And I've talked about that before too. You might be going along, having a good day or whatever, and, little things are going to pop into your mind, or you're going to get attacked in little ways, and then you're going to get that feedback to where, if you were more spiritually mature or whatever, that, and so now it's your fault there too. It's always going to come back to the same methodology. They want you to internalize it. They want to gaslight you. They want to condemn you. Okay? That's the modus operandi of this whole thing. And getting you emotional and, just putting you on that roller coaster is part of the game. So guys, just remember, look straight ahead. Don't be manipulated. I'd like to thank everybody again for helping me on GoFundMe. If you still want to support me and the channel, I could use the help. Michael, Arizona, capital M, capital A, extended COVID expenses. Thanks again for the prayer, guys. I could use more, and my kitty cat's doing real good. Thanks again, guys. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.